Childhood and growing up. This is for B.Ed first year, exclusively for Pondicherry University, explained by Dr. Shubha, Vasavi College of Education, Pondicherry. Now this is Unit 6. We are going to deal with socio-cultural impact on learner, under which we will be dealing with social stratification, that is classification, dimension of stratification, factors of family, school and media influence, social norms, social acceptance, sociometric status, socio-empathic ability, nature of prejudice, socio-cultural impact on learning, difficulties and learning disabilities, cultural space of the learner, leadership influence in behavior. Now, what is social stratification? This is classification of people into groups based on socio-economic conditions, that is poor, rich, likewise. A relational set of inequalities. Now, from where do we get these inequalities? Economic inequalities. Middle class, upper class, lower class. And social, elite society, likewise, urban, rural, slum people, political, who are in power and who are not in power, and ideological dimensions. Ideology means the caste system and religion, the biased, prejudiced and biased, you can say that. When differences lead to greater status, power or privilege for some groups over the other, it is called social stratification. That is dividing the people, dividing the society into various strata. Strata means groups based on economic, social, political and different ideology. It's a system by which the society ranks, divide categories of people in a hierarchy. Hierarchy means from big to small, likewise. 4 basic principles are followed in social classification. Is a triad of society, not simply a reflection of individual differences. Means it is not depending on the individual differences. It is a triad which is followed by the society. It carries over from generation to generation. Social stratification is universal. Universal means it's everywhere, but it's a variable. It's ever changing. It involves not just inequality, but beliefs also as well. Means, why do we call this as a variable? The first generation may be a poor. They belong to a economically lower class. But the next generation may be economically independent and economically very successful. So they fall into a different category. So it's a variable. Okay. Though it is followed from generation to generation, it is universal and it's variable. In modern world, stratification is broadly organized into 3 main layers: upper class, middle class and lower class. Now again, each of these classes will be further divided into smaller classes also. When the society is classified, it's based on wealth and income. Wealth is actually from generation, it's given to them. It's like their hair, it's hereditary. Income, what they earn, the most common basis of stratification. And social class, upper class, middle class, ethnicity, gender, and political status with power, religion. We have caste system in India. It's also based upon either an open or a closed system. Open system means what? Means from generation to generation they can change from upper middle class to lower middle class or lower to upper. It's open. Or if it is closer on a caste system, they have to remain in a closed system. They cannot change. But these days that is also flexible. Gender also has been added to the theory of social stratification. along with the dimensions of class, status, and power. Two other dimensions, ethnicity and race, also have appeared recently. Ethnicity and race, cultural dimensions of stratification. Now we will discuss all this, like class and caste, power, gender, ethnicity and race, one by one. Some basic concepts relating to stratification, such as equality, inequality, hierarchy, exclusion. Exclusion means what? They are not included in. Poverty, depriving something, deprivation theories of social stratification. We have Karl Marx telling something and Max Weber telling something. Marxist, Weberian, that's what we say. Structural, functional. This is what we say. Structural, functional. The main dimensions of social stratifications are economic, social and political. Actually these three only. But Karl Marx says it is only class. But Max Weber says the other, political, economic and social also. But Karl Marx advocated only class, middle class, lower class and upper class. The social order of the groups in society involves a certain arrangement or classification or stratification of the individuals and also of the groups, along with the vertical from top to bottom. Top to bottom is also there, and horizontal layers are also there. Horizontal we call it as strata. Now what Karl Marx is telling, the means of production and the level of scientific technological progress determine the evolutionary processes in society and define the social stratification and inequality. So Karl Marx says only about the wealth, the production and the science and technological progress. Due to this, there is an evolutionary process. So people are becoming rich and poor and all that. So this defines the social stratification and also the inequality. Social inequality, that is social structures like the classes, they have a fixed position in the system of social production, which is determined by their relation to the ownership of the means of production. So Karl Marx simplifies the nature of social stratification when he takes the single source of social stratification as a means of production and dividing the individuals into those who possess, the owners, and who can offer to the market only their own labor. So the laborers and the owners. So only these class. Karl Marx is defining the social stratification only like this: the capitalist owners and the wage laborers. So Karl Marx talks about unidimension. So to overcome Marx's unidimensionality, Max Weber develops a multi-dimensional approach to classification. So according to Weber, the different position of the individuals or the different position of the groups in the social space stems, that is, comes out not only from the ownership relations, that is, owner and the laborer, not only from this, but also from the relation to power as well, and as well as the level of social prestige, the power and the social prestige. So he introduced three primary dimensions of classification, social stratification: a class, that is economic position as advocated by Karl Marx, party, the power, and the status, that is prestige. These dimensions express three distinct forms of social stratifications. That is, we were talking about economic, political, and social, that is the power and the prestige. These three types of stratification hierarchy, they stabilize the behavior of the members of the society from different sides and through different principles. The first dimension, the economic, it has two elements, that is income and wealth. Income is the amount of money one receives, like salary. Wealth is the property, the material possessions owned by the individual, like immovable property, production and non-production assets, jewelry, shares, security, expensive artworks, etc. That is, rich kings, they might have a big bungalow and lots of jewelries and shares, expensive artworks. All these are wealth, whereas income comes from the salary. So based on income and wealth, there is a stratification. And now comes power. So power is the second dimension of stratification. Power is the ability or the possibility to exercise and enforce one's will, affecting other people's behavior by various means: economic, political, ideological, religious, etc. It is by these means that power can be used as force, that is, forcing the other person in the name of religion, in the name of economic superiority, in the name of political uphandedness. Apart from domination, power is also expressed in a variety of other forms. Guidance, like teachers also, teachers, principals, they exhibit and exert power in the form of guidance. Organization, in an organization, power is exercised in a management, in control also. So these are the second dimension of Weber. Now let's talk about the third dimension, which has a purely social indicator, status or prestige. It's a relative social position of the individual or of a group in the social hierarchy. It is, I belong to this religion, I belong to this particular caste, likewise. So they have a prestige, they have a status in the society, and that includes certain rights and obligations. Status also incorporates such socio-cultural characteristics as a way of life. That is, I belong to this elite family, so I will behave only in this way, and you are not in this hierarchy, so you don't belong to this group. So I have a prestige and you don't have, likewise. So this is also one way of stratifying. So we are talking about Weber. He believes there are two kinds of status: a class, status by class, and status by social. Now what is this class status? Material possessions, upper class, lower class. Material possessions are commodities, externally demonstrable living conditions, and the subjective sense of inner gratification. That is, I have a big bungalow and I have a swimming pool in my house, I have this in my house, I have a helicopter, I have 2 cars. So this is a class status. Now what is a social status? That is, my father is a doctor, is a chief doctor, is a chief engineer. My father is working in a very, very big position in government. So that is social status, is linked to a certain level of social esteem and honors. That is, my father was like this, my grandparent, they were like this. So that is a social esteem through the category of prestige. It is typically expressed and determined by the lifestyle and by the formal education and the corresponding types of behavior. This comes from the hereditary and professional attributes. Social stratification, the dimensions and its impact. This picture speaks volume, like the rich and the poor. So there is absolutely no gap, and the rich is sitting on the poor. See, can you see that? So it's like that. Now when we talk about the agencies, social agencies, family is the first agent. Every child learns to socialize only from the family. Mothers, father, siblings, grandparents, and members of extended family. All of them, they teach a child what he needs to know. They show the child how to use the objects, how to relate to others, and who are their friends, who are strangers, teachers, neighbors, and how the world works, what is real and what is imagined. So either from your own experience as a child or your own role in helping to raise one child, socialization involves teaching and learning about an unending array of objects and ideas. So this happens only from the family. So family is the root where a child begins to socialize. According to the famous sociologist Robert Merton, it is the family which is a major transmission belt for the diffusion of cultural standards to the oncoming generation. That is, family is the only place where the cultural standards are given out to the next generation, diffusion given out to the next generation, to the children. The family serves as the natural and convenient channel of social continuity. That is, everything continues. The natural and convenient channel of social continuity is maintained only by the... Now, what are the effects then? Erikson's stage of development offer another model for understanding socialization. In each stage, there are influences or agents of socialization who have an impact on the child and the messages of socialization being received. As the child develops and advances in psychosocial development, the agents become stronger or weaker in their capacity for influence. Early in a child's development, the family is, of course, the strongest agent. But as the child advances to preschool age, programs or schools begin to exert influence. So at each stage, from middle childhood, early childhood, adolescence, at each stage, as Erikson says, family and other agents, other agencies of socialization, they exert their influence. The parents, school, neighbor, community, media. So, the psychosocial development. A child gets psychosocial development only through these agents. So, after the family, the school comes next. It's the second agency. Now, in the school, the child gets education, which molds his ideas and attitudes. Good education will make a child a good citizen. And bad education, now what is this bad education? Will turn him into a criminal. So education is of great importance in socialization. And a teacher should know the psychology. Teachers should know that each child is an individual. Each one is individually different. They are unique. So you cannot treat two children in the same manner, because good education and bad education comes only there. If a teacher is partial, then you know what happens? There will be problems. Now these days you are watching Mahabharata. So the teacher Dronacharya is partial. So there is, between Arjuna and Duryodhana, there is a rift between the students. The teacher is partial. So good education and bad education comes only there. A well-planned system of education can produce a very good socialized persons. Schools socialize children by teaching them the formal curriculum, that is maths, physics and all that. But a hidden curriculum is also there. The hidden curriculum imparts the cultural values. So what are the hidden curriculum? Extracurricular activities and co-curricular activities. That is celebrating all the festivals. So when we celebrate all the religious festivals and national festivals, a child develops patriotism. And a child believes and behaves in a manner that no religion is the highest. All religion are the same. So we are far and beyond religion. So when they are in school, they will be with the teachers and the higher authorities and their classmates, their peers. So they are the active socialization agents. So for the first 8 years of childhood, family, school, community, and peers, they play a key role in the following aspects of a child's socialization. The development of trust. It comes from the family first. The development of independence. The tendency to take initiative. This comes from school. The sense of competence and ambition. This comes from school as well and from the peers. The important agent of childhood socialization is a school. The official purpose of school is to transfer subject knowledge and teach life skills, such as following the directions and meeting the deadlines. But students don't just learn from the academic curriculum prepared by the school administrators. In school, they also learn social skills. And how do they learn social skills? Through their interactions with the peers, with the teachers, with the staff and other students. So, first the family, next the school, then they go to the community. So these are the agents of socialization.